Welcome to part 2 of your Concur expense training. In this section we're going to go over the different expense types. The first one under business promotions is miscellaneous trade show fees. And normally you won't see this, and if you need to use it, your manager will let you know ahead of time. Pretty self-explanatory. Communications, for certain positions such as specialist and administrative roles, then internet charges and local phone are reimbursable. These have to be approved ahead of time by the individual manager. If long distance is included in local phone, there's no reason to break it out separately. Long distance can be used for field service folks. If they're out and for some reason the cell phone is not working, you have to use the hotel phone, and that's your only means of communication. Then this could be used to get reimbursed for that long distance charge. Personal cell phone really isn't used too much anymore. Most all the phones are contract and they'll be issued to you when you come on board. There are certain locations, such as Alaska, that doesn't have any of our carriers that may be reimbursed at an individual level. This must be approved ahead of time, so please don't assume that because you used your personal cell phone that you'll get reimbursed. Personal cell phones and reimbursement has to be approved ahead of time. Please keep that in mind. Company car expenses. Company car maintenance is not one that we'll normally see. It should be used as an exception. The example I like to use is if you're caught in a torrential downpour and your windshield wiper blows off. Obviously it's not safe to move on. You need to get to a parts store, get you a windshield wiper. Go ahead and put that on your company charge card, and you can get reimbursed for that. It is not, however, for replacing a worn out windshield wiper blade. Normally all maintenance type expenses need to go through lease plan. This is really only in case of an emergency. One other exception might be for windshield washer fluid. We see that fairly often. So otherwise really shouldn't see too much, and keep in mind always go through lease plan, get their approval first. Company car wash, maximum of $15 per month, and that is for lease cars only, and receipts are required. Please keep that in mind. Entertainment, these are really fall under managers. This is for everybody as far as Concur goes, and so these are really management functions. If they take their folks out for a meal, then this is where they can expense it. Entertainment, we rarely, if ever, will see this one. It's just not used that often. It's usually done in some other way. So those are typical management functions, and they're here for their use. You normally won't be using those. Individual meals. Let me explain the late day meal. A late day meal, the idea is that if you worked more than 10 hours in a day and it's been such a long day, you're not going to make it home for your normal dinner time. So the idea here is we said, hey, let's go ahead, and you can go ahead and get something to eat, whether you sit down or pick something on your way home and take it with you. This is for you as an individual. There is a $15 maximum, and receipts are required. Per diem we'll talk about a little more as we do hotels, and I'll show you how to report that. It is $39 a day. Per diem is in conjunction with an overnight stay only. Travel day meal is following an overnight stay. You're working your way back home and it's time to get a meal. Then the idea behind travel day meal is to get something on your way home from being out of town. Okay, that's what travel day meal is. Typically you'll see it. This can only be reported on the day following an overnight stay. So please keep that in mind. It is not a fixed $15, it's the actual amount. But up to $15 a receipt is not required. Lodging, hotel, pretty self-explanatory, but we'll go over this and how you actually report this along with per diem, but hotel is pretty self-explanatory. Awards, again, this is typically a management function. We have a very active awards program in CES, and this is where managers get reimbursed for certain types of awards that they give out. The next column you'll see is other. Under that is CES paid meetings, and you'll know ahead of time if this is the expense type you should use. This is normally associated with the awards program, and you'll be notified if you've been selected and if this is the expense type to use. You'll find out ahead of time. Continuing training, This would be for typically something outside of the realm of normal technical training. Might be an administrator needs a certification and there's a charge for that certification. Something like that would fall under here. Most all of your training will be in the technical side and will just be reported as normal expenses under the other categories here. Miscellaneous, we try not to use this unless absolutely necessary. Some things just don't quite fit into a particular category and miscellaneous needs to be used. If in doubt, please check with your manager first. Moves are typically not reimbursable. There are exceptions, of course, and this is where they'd be reported, and this would be coordinated ahead of time with your manager. Tools. Tools are, in this category, or when you're reporting for expenses, are normally just replacement tools. You broke a screwdriver, you need to replace a screwdriver. If it's something special that you would like to have, or something you need to make sure that you've approved it with your manager ahead of time, we don't normally go out and buy individual tools that just because somebody likes this type versus another type, because we did provide all the tools as a kit, but there maybe something comes up, maybe it's a special project, things like that, where you would need a tool and that's out of the norm and out of the normal kit. So typically this is just to replace individual tools that may have broken while you're using them. So that's what tools is about. Airfare direct billed. This one is very important. You should always go through Fuji Travel, either online or by phone, preferably online. You coordinate your travel. Airfare is paid directly out of a master account, but we still need to account for it on the expenses. Very, very important for budgeting purposes. It's still an expense to CES and needs to be shown on your expense account. And I will show you this when we go into the individual, actually doing the expenses on how you identify this as being company paid. Airfare not direct billed. Hopefully you won't use this. It's very much an exception. Make sure you get your manager approval ahead of time whenever possible to use the not direct billed airfare. If you are stuck out in the middle of somewhere and you need a flight, right? You need to get a flight. You can't get a hold of Fuji Travel by the phone or online. Can't get your airfare booked, and you must book it yourself and pay for it yourself on your credit card. Then this is where that would go. But please make this the last resort. Whenever possible. Airline fees. This would be baggage fees, airline, maybe a change fee for a flight change. Make sure you should be contacting Fuji Travel. Again, probably on the phone with this one. And make sure if they are paying it out of the master account or if you need to charge it to your credit card. So if you need to charge it to your credit card, this is where it would go. It's on the master account. Then you use this and mark company paid for your airline fees. Car rental gasoline. This is for car rentals only. When you're out of town and need to rent a car, you get reimbursed for the cost of the rental car and the cost of the gasoline. This is not for lease cars. It is not for lease plan provided rental cars. For example, if something happens to your car and your lease car and it's in the shop for whatever reason and they provide you with a rental car, then you continue to report your mileage just as if you had your lease car. This car rental gasoline is strictly if you're out of town and you need to rent a car because you're physically out of town. Okay? If you're being provided a rental car as a regular mode of transportation, then you report your mileage. You do not report the gasoline cost. Car rental is not direct billed. Again, car rental this is only reported when you're out of town. If lease plan provides you with a rental car, you do not report the rental car cost. Well, you won't even see it. You will just continue to claim your mileage just as you would as if you had your lease car. So please keep that in mind. Car rental, not direct billed, means you pay for it and then get reimbursed, of course, but it's strictly for when you're out of town. Car rental gas, strictly for out-of-town rentals. If in doubt, talk to your manager, but keep that in mind. These are not, if they're provided with anything by lease plan, you do not use these categories. Mileage. We talked about the setup initially, and this is where you'll put the expense in, and we'll go over how to actually do that. There's a pretty cool little map program. It's tied to Google Maps where you can use that to figure your mileage each day, and we'll go over that in more detail. The other ones are pretty straightforward. Parking, pretty straightforward. If there's any kind of parking expense, typically airport, make sure you have your receipt. Shuttles, taxis, tolls. Keep in mind if you're in a toll-heavy area that you can do it one of two ways. You can report them daily, or if you're on a toll pass kind of a deal where they bill you monthly, then you can do that as well. You just use your receipt from your, or pull it offline, whatever works, and get that, and then just make sure that you mark what's business and what's personal as far as tolls go, but you can use that as your receipt and report all your tolls at one time. You don't have to report them daily. Train, just another mode of transportation. I know the Northeast, maybe some other areas, they use trains as transportation, and this is where that would be used.